As influencers, we get a lot of ridiculous emails in our inbox, but are we then allowed to use those emails and show them on social media and in our videos to teach and educate on red, green, beige flags in the industry? Let's talk to a lawyer to find out.
My name is Tony Oikasas. I'm an adjunct professor of entertainment law and IP at New York Law School, and I have an Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok account called The IP Professor that's dedicated to all things intellectual property.
Tony, influencers get a lot of emails from companies, some good, some bad, some in between. And as influencers who educate other influencers, oftentimes we will want to share what companies are saying and the interactions that we're having in order to educate other influencers. So is it permissible on the legal side of things to take an email that was sent to us by a company and show it to have a conversation about what is and is not acceptable in the influencer space?
So for the most part, it should be fully fine to do something like that. I think we obviously would have a different conversation if, like, let's say you sign an NDA or something, or if you sign some type of contract where you're sworn to secrecy with a specific. But for the most part, emails, especially if they kind of lay out the general nature of correspondence with the brand or the tone of conversation between you and the brand, I think that that's something that is totally fine. I would say that for the sake of not creating an invasion of privacy scenario, for the sake of also providing some sense of safety to the person, because the internet is ruthless, it probably would be wise to blur out names and maybe even profile photos if, let's say, those were visible in your screenshot of an email. But that said, I think the one other main point that is really important here to stress is that the whole point of sharing this email or a screenshot of a correspondence between X influencer and Y brand is, if the whole point of it is to educate and provide an opinion about something, that I think is something that is completely permissible by law. And more so under the guise of, let's say, the First Amendment, where you have free expression of speech, you have that ability to share an opinion. It's something that itself would not be defamatory in nature. And, there are brands out there that could sue for defamation because they'll say that, someone made a false statement knowing that it was false, and they still said it with reckless disregard of the truth. But at the end of the day, if you're sharing an opinion, if you're doing, let's say, some type of educational resource, educating people about the green flags, the red flags, the beige flags, even in your correspondence with a specific brand, that's going to be viewed in the eyes of the law as something that is opinion based. And I think that if your talk about it is reinforced with statements like, in my opinion, or I think, or I believe, those are the kinds of things that leave no room for it being viewed as a declaratory statement. And that's something that could completely wipe defamation as a cause of action out the window. But all that to say, I think that at the end of the day, when you are trying to be a bit candid with an audience and share the reality of being an entrepreneur, being an influencer in this highly saturated marketplace, and you want to share this, the dumb emails you get, the really bad emails, whatever it is, I think that that's totally fine. And there's nothing in the law that would absolve someone from having that opportunity to share it. Again, as long as you kind of do it with the thought that you don't want to endanger the safety of the other person on the other side of the email, or if there's a representative from the brand, obviously, that person individually should not be singled out, but you want to do your best to kind of, distance yourself from potential cause of action between you and that brand.
And best practices, if you are an influencer who does want to have these conversations about some of the emails that you get, is to blur the names, make sure you're not outing anybody, you're not putting anyone in danger. I highly recommend that you give it space. We know these things come in a lot and we can kind of get hot under the collar over some of these. So give it a little bit of time and distance. If you have to do it and not be so nice about it, film it and then delete it and then do it again in 2 days when you are more ready to have the conversations. And keep in mind that you're doing this to educate and to help other influencers. Oftentimes we can get into these conversations and just want to point out XYZ from XYZ company and have them called out on social media, and that's not going to work to your benefit or to their benefit. Now, also best practices when it comes to being an influencer, if you're in a brand deal with them, that's private. Don't share that information. A lot of that is covered under your contract that you're not supposed to talk about how much money you're making or the things that you have to do for that collaboration. But if these people email you out of the blue and are just trying to solicit you to work with them, usually for free, I say it's fair game. You say it's fair game, Tony?
I think so. I actually think that that's very much so. And look, I think that sharing the reality of, these not so pleasant conversations with other people. I mean, that's something that everybody encounters and deals with. How many times have we, even on our own Instagram stories, shared texts that we have with friends? I mean, we do it on a pretty consistent basis across the board. We no offense to anybody that has been a victim of my Instagram story where I shared their text, but either way, we do it all the time. But we do so under a specific context. And I think that that's important here. If you start doing it in an out of context format, or if you start doing like what you were saying earlier, Cam, where you're not blurring names and you're not, doing your best to conceal the identity of the brand, that's where it becomes a bit more problematic. And that's where it may not lead to a foolproof lawsuit or cease and desist, but it could entertain a legal inquiry that, why do you need that stress? You got a lot of stress here in this day and age. That's one last thing you need to worry about. So I think it's important to play it safe, but still understand that, it is fair game to share and be candid about the bad experiences we have with brands on a daily basis.
And because this happens to us all the time and we want to create content out of it, if you have questions, drop them down below. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes. And as always, you can reach out to Tony on his social media. Tony, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok at The IP Professor. You can check out my entertainment law podcast called Unseen. New episodes drop every Friday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Drop your questions down below. Tony's coming back for upcoming episodes. We want to make sure that you are legally protected in this space, so let us know what you're worried about. And we're dropping daily videos to help you navigate the world of your social media marketing and building your online business, so we'll see you in the upcoming episodes.